Good morning, everyone. So glad you could join us for coffee again. Hope you had a nice week and a nice weekend. I always pray for that. I always hope you pray for that. I have a good weekend too. So thank you for that. And again, I ask you to remember in your prayers our retired Vincentians in Perryville, Missouri, especially those in need of healing. And I'd like you also to remember friends of the mission who continue to seek that miracle from God. And so I'd like you to continue praying for Bill and Brian and Clarence and Stan and Allison and Karen, Louise, Loretta, Nina, Sharon and Pat. And continue to pray that God bring them the miracle soon. And as I ask for prayers, I can't help but asking you for prayers for all the victims of the fire in Maui and Hawaii. It's just sad to see how many people have died and just had no preparation. So remember the families of all those people who have suffered. So my reflection is on the feast today. And I know that this saint did so much for the church. We're celebrating today the feast of St. Pius X, who became a pope, Pope Pius. He was born in Italy. His name was Giuseppe Sarto. I did a lot of reading about him because I know what an impact he had on the church and things that he had done as pope that have shaped our prayer, our worship today. Came from a big family. I mean, he had 9 brothers and sisters. Family was poor. His dad was a mailman. His mother was a dressmaker from home. And all he ever learned from that was important to him was to be educated. And so school became important to him. He walked every day to school and went early so he could go to church before school. And the more I read about Giuseppe, the more I started thinking about my journey. How it was similar. We had a lot of the similar experiences, but we were so different. I mean, he loved school. I mean, he loved learning. He got good at it. That wasn't me. At least I had a lot of it. I had a lot of schooling and a lot of education. But I always pursued education because it was a license for me to do something. That's how I looked at it. For Giuseppe, he enjoyed learning, and he always became the head of his class. I graduated from high school when he was 15 years old, and then he entered the seminary. And he wanted to continue studying, and through his studies, I think he got a love of becoming a priest. One of his brothers followed in his father's footsteps and became a mailman. And yet Giuseppe always talked about and revered his brother who became the parish priest. And I think that had a big influence. And my experience too was another priest influencing, not my brother. We never told each other we were going to enter the seminary. And I think it's because we were twins. And I think if we had shared and talked about it before we went to the seminary, one of us may not have gone, just to be different. And so he pursued priesthood, Giuseppe, and became a priest. And his education just enhanced his life. And as I said, mine, I had a lot of education, but it was because it was a license for me. My first assignment was in Tucson, Arizona, and I was asked to be the director of spirituality. So during the summers, I went away and got a master's degree in teaching religion. And obviously, through the seminary theology and ordained, I got a master's of theology. And we all got that. And then while I was stationed, I recall the joy of my first degree in counseling, because I knew that's what I always thought of when I was in the seminary. I'd love being in campus ministry or working at a university. And I thought, to be a good priest, counseling was a tool, was a license. And then after I was at DePaul for quite a while, my brother had approached me about joining the parish mission team. And while I was at DePaul, I went to night school at Loyola and got a master's in pastoral studies so that I would be good at it. But for Giuseppe, education was just enhancing his life, and he got good at it. Always the top of his class. That wasn't me. And he became a priest, became a bishop, and he had to get permission to become a bishop because he didn't have a doctorate. And that time you had to have one, and so he got permission from the Pope, and he became a bishop, and he became a cardinal, and he became a pope. But what he did as Pope is why I really wanted to learn more about him, because so many things he instituted. I mean, things like studying St. Thomas for philosophy, and every seminary does it today. It's like a prerequisite. He established that because he taught in the seminary. And so Thomism or Thomistic philosophy became, and through so many things that he did, I mean, the Gregorian chant he brought back, and this man just had so many influences on the church today. But the best one was his love for Eucharist. He's the one that brought that children could receive Eucharist. And he always talked about that, and he championed the celebration of Eucharist and how important it was. He used to say the safest and surest way to heaven was with Eucharist. And that's at the heart of what I do today in parish mission. The heart, as St. Vincent wanted it, was Eucharist. And so as I celebrate today this feast of Pius X, there's so many things that I look at my life and how much I appreciate what Pius did. Somehow he even instituted the Code of Canon Law, which is at the heart of the laws of the church today, and how the church functions. I was never good at canon law. Ask my brother sometime about canon law. We had Father Frank Germovnik teaching us canon law. Man, it was a struggle. Not for Giuseppe. And his influence on the church is so good. I think the most important thing was his love of Eucharist. And so, as I celebrate today his feast, I recall the beauty and what he did for the church. Once again, at the time is over, we always ask God to help us. And so would you join me in saying our mission prayer? Divine Savior, transform me into yourself. May my hands be your hands. May my tongue be your tongue. Grant that every faculty of my body may serve only to glorify you. Above all, transform my soul and all its powers, that my memory, my will, and my affections may be the memory, the will, and the affections of you. I pray you to destroy all that is not of you. Grant that I may live but in you and by you and for you, and that I may truly say with St. Paul, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. God bless. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you do again next week. God bless. Stay safe.